Sure, sure.
So, Marco from Peru, lovely. Let's say Chinanto from. And everyone is Cyprus. Ooh. I wonder how many countries we can have. Hi, everybody. And do y'all see any familiar faces on here? Like anyone you've met before in person?
My camera is not working properly, so I cannot turn on the camera. Sorry for that.
I will get started in a moment, but in the meantime, for everyone that's joining, welcome again to our GAAD Global Accessibility Awareness Day virtual meetup. We have so many things planned for you all, but if you're joining, just in the chat box, write your name and write your country. Oh, someone said around 30 countries today. I hope so. I hope so, we hope so. In a moment, I'm going to introduce the One Accessibility team and just go over certain guidelines. So just give me a minute or two. Oh, we have Abuja. Oh, Shayon, I'm in Abuja as well. I have another Abuja. Oh, Jessica, Jessie. All right. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. So if everyone can take this time as you're doing introductions, which is beautiful, I just want to go over certain guidelines. If everyone can just please take this moment to mute themselves. So there'll be opportunity later on to have more interactive session where you can ask questions, and we'll have our moderators for that. But for this moment, please just take about a minute or two to mute yourself. And I believe if this is your first time using Google Meet, you can find it in the bottom tab. You can the microphone, if you click on it, you can mute your microphone. But I believe right now we don't have any sound interference, so we're good to go. Control D. Yes, thank you, Mohammed. Control, that's efficient. Control D. Okay, so hello, everybody. Welcome to our virtual meetup, the One Accessibility team. Before I get started, I want to introduce our team, our facilitator. My name is Chinanto Onukwa. I'm from Nigeria. We're in Nigeria. And we have Kashif. So as I'm introducing them, can you please say hi? We have Kashif. We have Jane. We have Penny, we have Jessica, and we have Emeka. So I'm sure you probably, seen them around either in person or on Connect or, on social media. They're doing amazing things. So we have our team and they're very experienced. So if you have any questions, there'll be a chance to ask questions throughout the meetup. And we also have a special guest, which I will introduce later on. I'm so excited. So basically for this, the protocol for this is, like I said before, for those just joining us, please mute yourself. So when we have our speaker, Emeka and Jessica will be our moderators. As you're moderating and as our guest speaker is speaking, we just ask that everyone be respectful and not interrupt. If you have any questions, just save that for later. There will be time towards the second half of this meetup for that. but we welcome any questions, and I'm sure a lot of you all have some kind of interest or curiosity or some experience with accessibility. And if you do not, that's completely okay. You will definitely learn today. Are we okay with everything? Or before we officially start, do we have any questions? Okay. Oh, I said mute. Okay. So I see we're still doing introductions. I love. Oh, we have someone from Indonesia, and thank you everybody for either waking up with us or staying up late. Some people it's 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Some people are it's what 11 p.m., 4 a.m. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So I can see we officially have our guest speaker on board. So I want to welcome everybody to our GAAD Global Awareness Accessibility Day virtual meetup. Thank you everybody for joining. I want to officially introduce our One Accessibility team and facilitators. We have myself, Shinonso, we have Kashif, we have Jane, we have Penny, Jessica, and Emeka. So you will see them, you will hear from them, Emeka and Jessica, the official moderators, but you'll hear from the rest of the team along the way. Please, I would like to take this moment to ask everyone to be on mute. So just kindly turn off your microphone, put it on mute. If you have any questions, you will have a chance to ask that to either the facilitators, the moderators, or our guest speaker in the second half, and you can ask those questions via chat. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us. And if you haven't already, please write your name and write your country where you're calling in from or you're sharing from. I believe we're trying to get more than 30 countries here. So I see we have Nigeria, we have Indonesia, Cyprus, Brazil. I see we have Argentina, we have, Kyrgyzstan, we have Pakistan, India, and so I'm except Peru, I can't forget that. So I'm so thrilled for you all to be here. Are we good to go? Yes, you're all on mute, so I'm going to assume you said yes. Please, if anyone is presenting, please could you stop presenting? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So, while we can, before I get started, can someone, okay, so as you're introducing, can someone, you can write in the chat, this is just this brief icebreaker, you can write in the chat, just what area of accessibility are you most interested in? So feel free to type it up in the chat, your answers to the questions. What area of accessibility? So, there's physical, cognitive, visual, audio. So which one particularly either sparks your interest or would you like to learn more about? And we have our guest speaker here. So in a moment, I will introduce him. So I don't know if you can tell my excitement, but in a moment, I shall introduce to 8 people, okay? Oh, that's interesting. In what digital ways, right? How can we create an inclusive community digitally? That's a good one. The entrance facilities for people, okay. So this is cognitive. All right. Yes, cognitive is one that's often, it's definitely an interesting one. It's particularly my favorite aspects of accessibility because I'm all about, mental health, but that's great. Create a community area. Thank you all for for answering. Thank you. Okay, so we see we have different areas of interest, which we will definitely address today. Okay, so I'm going to use this time, I'm going to use this chance to officially introduce our guest speaker. I believe he is here with us. And if you can do like a silent drum roll. Okay, so we have our guest speaker here with us. We have Joe Devon, who's here with us. He's actually the founder of GAAD, GAAD, Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Joe is a computer programmer. He has over 30 years of development experience. He's worked on projects including search engine technology, investment banks, telecommunications, and media. You can tell he's brilliant. He's truly the top-notch programmer. He's just solid. He's just amazing in his field. Joe is also a serial entrepreneur. He serves as an advisor for various startups, nonprofits, and conferences, and he's also the founder of Diamond, and the co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So please, if you can, I know we're all on mute, but if we can just give like a cheer or hoorah or some kind of like warm welcome to Joe. Thank you so much for being here with us, dedicating your time. I know your schedule is so hectic, but we are super thrilled to have you here. If you can tell, we're so excited. We're thrilled to have you here. So we have, so I know we've had a lot of interest in the local guides community on accessibility, and we knew that you were the best person, to be here with us today. So today we'll have Jessica, two of our accessibility champions with us, Jessica and Emeka, moderating. So how's going to run that? We have a series of questions, interview questions, if you don't mind answering, and then we'll also give a chance for our attendees to ask some questions and get some answers. So thank you, Joe, for being here with us.
Thank you.
And on that note,
should I say something or go back on mute?
No, you're welcome to say something, of course.
Okay, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I would be remiss to accept founding role because I'm co-founder both of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day and of Diamond. Jennison is my co-founder. I could not have done it without him. He's been an amazing person, really got me to understand the accessibility community because I really came in from the outside as a developer that did not work on accessibility. So, and he's texting me as we speak, so I better turn off my notifications. But thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Joe. So I'm now going to officially shift it on to our two moderators who will take it on from here and enjoy the meetup, everybody. And thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chinoso, for the job well done. Thank you, Joe, for coming up to this meetup. Local guides, we are proud to have you, and for you to spare your time to be with us today, we are really grateful. So for us to keep to time, I'll hand over to Jesse to probably take up the interactive session with you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you again for being here. It's great. And I'll start with the questions. So the first question we have for you is, what is digital accessibility, assistive technology, and inclusive design?
Okay. So to me, digital accessibility is all about making digital products that are accessible or work for people with disabilities. And assistive technology is a particular technology that's created to assist someone with a disability. So I don't know if everybody on here knows what a screen reader is, but for example, if you're blind, you cannot see the screen. So you need the words spoken. And so a screen reader is an assistive technology that reads the screen for you and allows you to use shortcuts in order to navigate the screen. As you can imagine, when you can see a screen, it's easy to to know where to go. But if you have to have a menu read out to you, you need to have structure to the actual page, and the screen reader tries to figure out what's going on the page and present it to someone who is blind. And then you have something like a Braille reader, and a Braille reader would be if you are, let's say if you're deafblind, for example, you can't see the screen, you can't speak, and you'll have a Braille reader that allows you to read Braille. It's also if you're blind. So there's lots of different kind of assistive technology. And then inclusive design is something that considers the full range of human diversity with respect to ability, language, culture, gender, age, and other forms of human difference. And that's a term that leads people to think about an expanding audience.
Great. Well, thank you for the very complete answer. The next question is, what is universal design and how important it is when it comes to achieving global accessibility?
So the difference between universal design and inclusive design is that universal design is the design of products and environments that to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. So that would be, you're not specifically thinking about how am I going to expand my audience, and you're really trying to make it work for everybody all at the same time. It's really just semantics, the difference between inclusive design and universal design that came out of a couple of people, I think from Microsoft that wrote, and maybe one was from Adobe, they wrote a couple of books, and so they define it slightly differently. But the real takeaway, I think, for most people is just you want to design things universally in such a way that it'll be usable for everybody. And just to give you an example, closed captions became law, and the industry thought of it as helping people that can't hear see what's going on the screen. But in the end, it's something that if you are on your iPhone in a train when we were allowed to do that, or if you're in a bar, a sports bar, or in an airport, if you have captions, you can find out what's going on without having the sound on. And so that's universal design because it's useful for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yep, I think it's like inclusive, being completely inclusive, right?
Yeah.
So the next question is, how can one know if a digital technology or content is accessible?
That's a great question. I'd say the best way is to test with people with disabilities. You know, you can do all kind of things. It's a big field, and you need to learn the field to really know all of that. And you can never be perfectly accessible. And I don't think the goal is to be perfectly accessible. It's like saying being perfectly usable. It's more about, depending if you're a big organization or small organization or on your own, that you care about accessibility and that you try and make things accessible, and if issues come up, that you fix them promptly, and you consider it in your design from the get-go. But to achieve perfection, you can't do. I'll also add that there are some automated technologies like Axe and Wave that will allow you to find out some of the aspects of a page that might be inaccessible, but only about 30% can be caught with automated technology. And I don't think we'll ever get to, maybe we'll get to 50% with incredible AI, probably not. But part of this has to be human. And just to give you an example, if you are providing alt text for an image and you use AI and it says, two men shaking hands, and it might describe their how diverse they are, and then you think that you have an understanding of it, but it's completely different than saying President Obama and President Trump shook hands. So there's an additional meaning to what's going on the page, and maybe there's some irony to it. You need to convey the meaning of the author of that image or the author of the page that's putting it on there, and how are you going to get an assistive technology to know the intention of the author? So that's something that will always have an element of manual testing.
So are there written guidelines for web accessibility?
Yes, there's the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. There are a few different ones, but everything basically is based off of the WCAG, the WCAG, or Web Content Accessibility Guidelines.
Good to know. So similar to software, can hardware be like keyboards or mouses be made accessible for people with disabilities?
Yeah, if I understand the question, I think so. So you have to think about it as assistive technology again. So most people are familiar with Stephen Hawking and have noticed that he had like a switch that he could use his cheek to access, or Microsoft released the adaptive Xbox controller on GAAD a couple of years ago. And that's a device that allows people with disabilities to access gaming controls, and they have a lot of customization. I bought one, but I haven't played with it yet. Just haven't had enough time, but that's an example of really an assistive technology, but it's making it accessible for people with disabilities. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does, I think.
Okay.
Perfectly. Thank you. So talking about our current situation, during the COVID-19 period, businesses and schools have switched to virtual platforms. How has this change impacted people with disabilities?
If people are on something like a technology that is accessible, it's probably been helpful. But I think for the most part, it's been damaging because most products aren't accessible. There isn't usually, for example, captions available, and it's been pretty devastating to schools and universities, because what's happening there is that you've had years and years and years of these schools dealing with people with disabilities who told them that they were not accessible, who kind of taught them how to make things more accessible, and with mixed results even there. We're releasing a State of Accessibility report where Sharon Rush from Nobility did an entire section on the EdTech space. So if you watch out for that tomorrow, you can read a whole detailed answer on it, but the numbers are staggering. There are a lot of students that are being left out. And sorry, what I wanted to say is that by moving onto a digital platform overnight, within 2 weeks, the schools that are not making accessible technology available are leaving behind so many students. So I think the impact has been pretty severe.
Yeah. So do you think that after COVID-19, there will be massive changes for users with disabilities?
I really hope so. And you know, the question is different in different locations. There's different countries handle disabilities differently. So for example, in America, we do have the legal backing that accessibility is the law, but it's tricky because the law was passed in July 1991, I think, the Americans with Disabilities Act. But what happened is it was before the web became ubiquitous. It was before apps were out there, and so as a result, it didn't call out digital technologies, and so this has been a battle in the courts. There's some famous cases like Domino's where they were trying to say that there's not enough guidelines. And so you have a lot of, let me think about this. You have sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Just give me a second here. Yeah, so the law is not fully, it had to go through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, who has consistently been ruling that accessibility is the law, but because it's not written out, it's something that can be fought in the courts. So it's been a winning case, but at the same time, it is not spelled out specifically. And sorry, I had to think about it a bit because the law is not, I'm not a lawyer, so it's just, you know, what's been out in the news.
It's okay, it's perfectly understandable. So as a developer, what do you think is the right stage to make a software or product accessible? And how easy it is for firms to adopt universal design from scratch?
Sorry, I missed the second half of that.
Yeah. How easy it is for firms to adopt universal design from scratch?
Okay. So really, it needs to be thought of right from the beginning at all stages. You need to have, first of all, the C-suite has to be behind it. It's really important from the top, which can be difficult sometimes. You'll often have the C-suite only bought in when they're dealing with compliance, where they know that the law is going to force them to. Then you need to have the product people aware of it, and they need to include it in their user stories. The designers need to be aware of it, and the developers need to be aware of it. So it's really from top to bottom. And I don't think it's easy because the knowledge isn't out there. And I think that we need to change the culture of development in order to make sure that this is something that people view as craft. You see, it's kind of similar. Oh, somebody's asking, does C-suite refer to executive level managers? Yes, that would be like CTO, CEO, COO. So the culture really needs to change, and that means a lot of people have to become aware of it. And I liken it to security. I remember I would always look at code, and this will speak a lot to developers. I always look at the code that I wrote 6 months ago with horror, because you keep learning more and more. And if you care about the craft of what you're doing, you care that the quality is there. So what happens is when you're thinking about accessibility as an unimportant feature, you may not view it as craft. And I think in order to change the culture, we need to make everybody building the product understand that they're missing a great deal of knowledge if they don't include accessibility. So just to give you an example from a designer's perspective, if you have a chat app, and this is a common pattern to say, if you have a green light, that means that you're online. If you have a red light, then you're offline. But if you're colorblind, like 10 million Americans are, then you can't tell the difference between red and green typically. So you have no idea if the person is online or offline. And one of the rules of accessibility is that you should not use color to convey information. So if you are a designer and you do not know this because you don't think accessibility is important, you're going to miss a very important element. And that's why universal design needs to get into the culture of design. And then when you're thinking about it as a developer, if you're unaware of various things when you're developing accessibly, then your code is just, the quality of your code is just not good. And it's the same with security. I remember the first time, because you mentioned that I have 30 years of experience, which just basically means I'm old. So I've been around long enough to see software grow. And there's something called SQL injection, which is the cause of so many databases. You've probably heard of lots of breaches where several hundred million people's data has been stolen from a database, and it's often because of a SQL injection. So the first time you run into a SQL injection as a developer, you're like, oh my God, like I don't know what I'm doing if I'm unaware of this. And so as a developer, you need to know, how many people have a disability? There's 1 billion people is the official statistics, but what they're not counting is the WHO recently came out with a statistic that 2.2 billion people have a visual impairment. So if you add the visual impairment to the other disabilities, it's a massive proportion of the population that you're leaving out if you don't know about accessibility. And so sometimes I'll speak with executives who will say, well, our statistics show that so few people have closed captions turned on, because they'll try and separate the disabilities. This disability is here, that disability is there. We don't need to care about these users, and they're thinking about it the wrong way. It really needs to be part of the culture to say even the number isn't the be all and end all, but that makes the business case that you're leaving out a significant piece of the population if you are not aware of all the elements of universal design and making sure that things are accessible. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, very much.
Okay.
So would you say there's been significant progress in assistive technology since Global Accessibility Awareness Day was launched?
So in terms of assistive technology, I would say probably yes. In terms of accessibility, not nearly enough. And this has been a little bit painful because if you're following the GAAD hashtag, the GAAD hashtag on Twitter, you will see incredible engagement. We got statistics from Twitter that we had a Twitter reach of 195 million users. But what happened at some point was, and it's happening yesterday as well, there's some users that are saying that this is great that we're celebrating Global Accessibility Awareness Day for one day, but what about the other 364 days of the year? That they're saying that it's inaccessible, and here we are patting ourselves on the back for accessibility, but we're not making it the priority it has to be. And after seeing that, I didn't want to create this day in order for companies to celebrate a job well done. It's about awareness so that we'll get better. And I felt that we were missing the statistics, at least I was. So I launched a State of Accessibility report, and I was planning to do an analysis of the web just to get a sense of how accessible it was. But in the meantime, Jared Smith from WebAIM came out with a WebAIM Million report. And that report took their tool, the Wave tool, and analyzed the top million web pages and found that 98% of the top million pages are inaccessible, and on average 60 errors per page. And so last year it was I think it was like a little under 98% and a little under 60. And then this year they came out with a new one, and we have an update from Jared in our State of Accessibility report, and the numbers got a little bit worse in the top million. So in a way, it hasn't gotten better, and we need to do better. We also, my company Diamond, we also did a manual analysis of the top 100 Alexa websites, and there we actually saw improvement, a fair bit of improvement. So it seems like the top companies are paying a little more attention, but we need to do more in terms of the underlying technologies and in terms of getting the culture there. We're very far from getting there, and it's my passion to try and affect the change. But I'll just keep throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks, because we're not there yet.
I'm sure we will someday. But looking at the State of Accessibility report findings, what is the most surprising thing about accessibility you have ever encountered?
The most surprising thing, again, is that statistic, the 98% of websites inaccessible and 60 errors per page. It's unconscionable that we are there today. And I think we need to start with the law. We need to lobby to get the law clarified. We came very close. The Obama administration was going to issue new guidance and update it, but they didn't get to it. And then with the Trump administration, it hasn't happened. It doesn't look to be on the roadmap. I think with some strong lobbying, we can get there. So if anybody is connected in that space, I would strongly recommend focusing on that. And then we need to get the culture. And something that we're working on is the frameworks, because some of the top frameworks are really what are used by millions of users downstream. And if we can get the top frameworks and the culture in the frameworks to make things accessible, or make it easier for accessibility to happen, to make the documentation accessible, that's going to affect things downstream. And we announced yesterday, and we'll probably go into a little more detail tomorrow, that we've partnered with Facebook to have them take something we came up with called the GAAD Pledge, where they're going to make the React Native project accessible. They're putting a lot of effort behind making it accessible, and that is a leadership move that will allow other frameworks to realize that it's really important for them to focus on accessibility, and at the same time, it will just by itself, if that gets fixed and there's more documentation around it, it's going to affect millions of websites. So that's what I'm working on. I hope that will help make those numbers get better. But like I said, it's a tough problem, and so we got to just keep throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, but that's great progress. Yeah. Next is screen readers render information of web pages for users with visual impairment. How can web contents be made screen readable?
That's a great question, and it's really connected with what I just described. So one of the problems with a lot of the frameworks and the coding, the boot camps as well, is that what'll happen is you have the framework, and this gets a little bit technical. Is there a technical audience? Are there a lot of programmers on, or is it more of a general audience?
I think mostly it's general. I mean, I am technical, but
yeah. So I'll try and explain it in a more general way. So there are, when you're creating a web page, there are what's called semantic elements. So what that means is if you create a button with something called a button tag, then the browsers understand what a button tag is and make sure, that they create the affordances that allow screen readers and other assistive technology to work. But what happens is that there's a tendency, today for these people that use the frameworks, and even those that don't use the frameworks, to just create something generic. It's called, let's say, a div or a span. Instead of using the native button element inside the browser, they will just take a picture of a button and implement something so that when you push the button, it will act, but it loses all of the accessibility underneath it. And this is a cause of massive problems. If developers would just use semantic HTML and they were taught to do so from the frameworks, and the frameworks made it hard to use generic elements, that would be a massive improvement in terms of the accessibility for assistive technology. I hope that was general enough that I didn't lose too many people here, but it's a little hard to explain sometimes the technical stuff. You just don't know.
Yeah, I think it was okay. I think.
Okay.
Thank you. So the next and final question is, the tech industry is becoming bigger and better. What kind of options are available for those who want to get into assistive technology?
That's a great question. So there's an organization called Teach Access, and they came out with some statistics that under 3% of college courses have the word accessibility in them, but over 63% of tech firms say that they are unable to staff their accessibility needs. And the reality is, for me, for example, we built a company to about 60 people, and I cannot hire a developer that knows accessibility. It's almost impossible. Almost nobody knows it. And anybody that has that ability is going to be hired very quickly. It is an incredible career. There are not enough people. And what I'm trying to do with GAAD and other initiatives is grow the space so that there's more and more developers and designers and product people that are aware of accessibility, which means the room for growth is incredible. 98% of sites are inaccessible. So we're starting to get the word out. GAAD is going viral every year. All the big tech companies and thousands of smaller tech companies are participating in the day. So the awareness is getting there, but the know-how is not. So I highly, highly recommend getting into the career of accessibility. DQ University has a course that they teach. It also helps to create the certification that is always kind of helpful when you're trying to kickstart an industry, so that people can say, okay, you have the certification, and therefore you have a certain minimum level of understanding of accessibility, and that will help you get a job.
Sure. I will try to get a show around accessibility. So that was the final question, and I will let Emeka take over.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Thank you, Joe. Some of your answers here have really opened my eyes to a lot of things. So I'll just ask one question before we go to the next stage. You talked about collaborating to make accessibility better worldwide. How do you think you could partner with local guides? Because local guides are like volunteers. We help add information on Google Maps. And in the last 1 year, I think we've added over 500 million information on Google Maps, which helps people with disabilities to, get information um, ahead of their journey going to a particular location. So do you think we could cooperate to make accessibility better everywhere worldwide? Thank you.
Yeah, I need to understand local guides a little bit better. I think I definitely saw you guys in the last couple of years tweeting, and it looks like an incredible initiative. I'm sure that there's a way, but it's probably not easy to do on a webinar to figure out how. So we should definitely connect afterward and see if we can find some way to collaborate.
All right, that would be great. So if not for this COVID pandemic, usually we get to visit Silicon Valley every year. So this would have been an opportunity for us to connect, but since it's not going to work, hopefully some other time. I believe there's a way we could partner to make this great. So
that would
thank
be amazing.
you. Yeah. So let me get Kashif. Kashif will give us some brief info about what we're doing. Local guides and our accessibility project thus far. So before we get to the interactive sessions where we'll have our fellow local guides ask you questions. Kashif.
Thank you so much. I am Kashif Misidia from Karachi, Pakistan. And I am a part of a great alliance. It's called One Accessibility Alliance. And it starts from almost 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago. And in this initiative, in One Accessibility primary objectives, we will include mapping places with wheelchair access, auditory facilities, braille and visual signs, advocating for full implementation of accessible policies, talking to decision makers, partnering with stakeholders in our communities, and getting our countries to attain accessible status. So we, by this great initiative, we are learning a lot about accessibility, and we are trying our best to create awareness for accessibility. So this is a small brief about accessibility. One Accessibility.
And what is the location of One Accessibility?
Well, let me help with that. Yes. So
yes.
One Accessibility is a project which the idea came up as a local guide. So because we put places on the map, so we discovered that some places have ramps while others don't. So some of us decided to make it a duty to always take photographs of ramps and accessibility features and put in a particular location. So for example, if you go to a restaurant and we see ramps, we take photographs of the ramp and other accessibility features and add them on the Google Maps. So if anyone wants to visit the restaurant, they probably see these features. So we do this worldwide. So we have about over 100 million local guides across the world. So most of us, this is what we do specifically to help people with disabilities. So we're like in 6 continents worldwide.
That's incredible. How did you guys get so big? That's a lot of people.
Yes, actually, Local Guides is a Google volunteer group. So so Google Maps, we volunteer to help add information on Google Maps. So most of this information you see on Google Maps, they're actually done by the local guides in every part of the world. So that's very
Yeah, whoever's idea that was, hats off to you. That's an incredible idea, and congratulations. That makes a huge difference.
Thank you, Joe. And you're doing a great job too. We appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
All right, then. So we'll have some time in our hands, and we'll let a few of the local guys to ask questions directly to you, and you could respond. Thank you. So I'll call on Jane.
Can I ask one question?
Teja, just hold on a bit, Teja.
Yeah, sure.
Hi everyone, I'm Zhana Burunina. You can call me Jane, a local guide level 8 from Mykolaiv, Ukraine. Now we are starting our question answer session. We can ask you question to Joe and to all accessibility one accessibility team members. Please ask your question. Tejai, please ask your question.
Adrian?
Adrian, please. Can you hear me, Adrian? I noticed your question in chat.
I presume it's me because I don't know whether there's any other Adrians in here, so I'm not sure. Hi, my name's Adrian. I'm based in the UK, but originally from Malaysia. So one of my questions I wanted to ask, listening to your conversation there was, is there any one or a few particular tech companies or global companies that you can name that has done really well in the accessibility space? That you want to say, like these are the people that are really making an effort into it, and we should kind of but kind of like thank them for making the effort, I guess.
So are you thinking in terms of accessibility companies that help people become more accessible, or are you thinking more about organizations like big tech companies or small tech companies? Is it, that they are doing a lot of effort?
The second one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like call out one or the other, and they're right now all of them are working on it really hard for sure. So I don't think it's a matter of thanking them, because at the end of the day, they all, I'd say most of them have a lot of work to do. But also it's a responsibility, I think. So I don't think it's about thanking them for it. It's more about recognizing it. So Apple has always certainly paid a lot of attention to accessibility. They've always had a very strong design sense. So you can look at the iPad, and you also have a VoiceOver was fantastic creation. And then Microsoft today is 100% behind accessibility. So for Apple, it's definitely a core value. For Microsoft, it's a core value. I've heard that there are vendors that say that if their products are inaccessible, Microsoft says you've got to make it accessible or we won't accept it. Then you've got, Facebook just came out, as I said, we're partnering with them on the React Native project. It's massive, and their accessibility team is growing quite a bit, and they're putting a lot of effort into accessibility. IBM just came out with a new accessibility checker. Amazon is doing an entire month of Global Accessibility Awareness Month. So internally, like a full month of teaching everybody internally. But it's such a big job that in all of these companies, there's certainly pockets of excellence and pockets where there needs to be work done. Does that make sense? I don't want to diss anybody, because they're all trying, and they're amazing accessibility teams in all of these companies. And at the same time, we can't pat people on the back, because there's a lot of work that has to still be done in terms of accessibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much. The next question, please, Tejai. Chaya. Please, Tejai.
Tejal.
Yes. Thank you. I'm Tejal from Valsad. I have done last year accessibility meetup in blind school, and I'm connected with the specially able school also. I'm doing mapping work and technical whatever they are. And during the meetup, we have taught them how to use their smartphone with in accessibility mode, and we have taught Google Assistant. So they are very happy. So my question is, we are doing um, companies and all are doing, but if we can give the training to the accessible special disabled people or blind people, it would be great help for them. At least they should know, okay, what facilities are community is providing for them. Is it okay? Thank you. Over to you.
Where are you located?
I'm located in India, Gujarat.
India.
And,
So, yes.
And one more question, one more suggestion. Here the people are, they are not able to understand English properly. So if uh, technically we can add a regional language, it would be better because they are coming for very tribal area. So regional language is more convenient for them. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, what's interesting here is that I'm living in the United States, so I see a lot what's going on in the United States. It's Global Accessibility Awareness Day, so every opportunity I have to speak to people globally is always a big lesson to me. I can tell you that over here there is a budget for training of all types. So over here, I don't know how big a problem it is. I feel like if people know how to connect with the resources to train in the United States, it's certainly possible. But I'm positive that in different regions, there are a lot of other challenges. The UN created, I forgot the name of it right now. I think it's CPOD. There's a certain convention for people with disabilities. There's something similar to the Americans with Disabilities Act that different countries have signed, and most countries have signed it. And that will help provide a foundation for it. But the reality is that in some regions, it's just impossible to get that training. And in terms of a regional language, there are various features technically that allow you to say which region you're in, as well as which language you're speaking, and even different versions of a language. So there is an underlying technology there that would allow that to happen. But there's a long way to go, unfortunately.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question, Sahana Nagaraya. What are some courses that we can take up to improve skills as accessibility developer?
The W3C has some free courses. DQ University is something that I personally have taken, and that helped me really learn, because as I think you guys heard from the beginning, I came from the outside. So I'm somebody that learned development, and then around the same time I co-founded Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I also co-founded a company. And basically running a company, I have barely touched code in 10 years. So it was a bit of a challenge for me to understand and learn the technical side of it, because I'm not actually actively writing code or fixing anything. So I love to dig deep, but I just didn't have the time. So personally, I've taken DQ University's course. It is I think it's something like $200 or $300. We provide it to all of our employees. There might be some affordability issues, but I think they work with people. So depending where you come from, maybe you can reach out and see what can be done. And if you can afford it, it's relatively not that expensive considering how much effort they've put into it.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much.
So just a moment, please. I just want to add to what Joe has said. So there is a course on Coursera. It's free. It's an accessibility course by University of Illinois, and it has a certificate. So they could also check that out. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah,
Thank
there's
you.
certainly more resources out there. That's just what I used, and I think they have a free. They make it free for students. It's possible, so there might be some, affordances there for that. So look into that.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Please, next question. Do you have more question to John?
Hi, this is Isha here. I had a
Hi,
question.
Isha.
Actually, sorry to speak directly here and not type because I was not able to type in the chat box. So first of all, Joe, thanks a lot. I mean, this is a really very informative session that's going on, and thanks a lot. One question that I had was you were talking about certain certifications that we can do. I mean, I also work in IT, so being a techie person, I wanted to know if I can upscale myself. So can you just tell what are the certifications which we can, I mean, do from a technical perspective?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think it's called CPAC, so CPACC. I don't have it myself yet. As I said, like I'm running a company, and this is my passion. And we only recently started an accessibility practice area, so I typically have specialists that know all of the details. But I think CPAC is the certification. But I think there's a couple of different versions of it. But if somebody else who's on here knows the answer to that, please feel free to correct me and get it exactly right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. I think
Okay.
Emeka, you were telling something about some certification on Coursera, right? What is its name? Can you just ping it in the chat box? Even that will help. Thank you so much.
I can look it
Yes, I
up.
will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can look it up as well as we're speaking, just to make sure. I as an engineer, I hate to give incorrect information, so I'm always saying qualifying it, but it is CPAC, and the IAAP is the organization that you can look up. So IAAP.org, and in there you've got CPAC, so CPACC, and yeah. I think that's the main one that you want to get.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Thank you, John. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
One more question from Adrian in chat. Is there any large global company that you can name that meets you standards of accessibility?
Oh, like I said earlier, that's not something that I'm trying to go into of grading people or things like that. I'm more trying to go to the inspirational side of inspiring people to pay attention to accessibility and working hard on accessibility. And I'm not a believer in the shame game or especially like calling out one and then not calling out the other. Let's get everybody on board.
Thank you, Joe. I agree, definitely. One more question for Anshak Mitra. How to make videos more accessible?
That's a great question. So there's a fair bit to it. So if you closed captioning is something that would be very helpful, and being budget conscious, what you can do is you can upload your video to YouTube on a private level, and then YouTube has an auto caption feature, and it is often called craptions, not calling out YouTube, but in general, these automated captions are not great. However, with YouTube, you go in, they'll give you a base, and it's getting better and better all the time. I would say probably 90% is accurate, and then you can go in and edit it yourself and then fix it, and then that will give you captions on your video. And then there's a way to download it, and I'm telling you the free version. If there's a budget, then you hire specialists to caption. You can do live captioning and then get a transcript afterward. And the reason that you want a transcript afterward is if you're deaf blind, the only way really to access that video is through a transcript. And then there's also something called audio description. So when you're watching a video, if you're blind, you can hear the scene. However, you might be missing certain visual elements. And so audio description is where you have a narrator that describes what's going on in the scene. And the first time I really saw this in action, I was invited to see some assistive technology at a movie theater. and they had a device. They had like headphones, and they had another one that showed you closed captions on a pair of glasses. And I'm listening to the audio description of the scene, and even though I can see the scene, I'm missing important details that the audio describer describes. And it's actually, when it's done well, it can be very helpful for everybody. Like all great accessibility features, it's useful for many people. So those are a couple of things. And then you have ASL, because some people are unable to understand or read the captions, and they speak sign language, really. And it's a visual language as opposed to a verbal language, which a lot of people don't realize that there is, that some people don't think with that verbal aspect, and they think from the visual aspect. So sign language, so ASL is American Sign Language. There's lots of different local sign languages. So adding a sign language is another feature. Some of this gets a little bit expensive, but really to get all three will make your video much more accessible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. One more question, Kamal Hassan from Bangladesh. Is there any way to get help from any developer or any plugins or any kind of source to automatically setting the accessibility benefits to set it in a web application? What is already done?
Yeah, there are some plugins, but typically they're not very good. You have a few cheap plugins where they promise you that you put in a line of JavaScript and it will make things accessible, and that's typically not the case. It usually makes matters worse. There are probably one or two that improve, like make certain fixes in JavaScript that actually do improve the situation a little bit, but really you need to learn accessibility and develop it right. And as you can see, I always feel bad when I don't know the answer to every single question, but it's a vast field. There's a lot to know, and it just takes time, and you have to put in the hours in order to get that information. There's no way around it.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for answering. And there are in chat, and there are many questions about improving accessibility on maps from local guide side and from how we as local guides can improve maps, add our accessibility information to maps. I would like to ask Emeka to tell about it more. Please, Emeka.
Thank you, Jane. So, Joe, what Jane is trying to talk about, I don't know if you use Google Maps. Usually, if you're driving, there is the voice mode that might prompt users to get directions while they are driving. So, such, how would I call them, an assistive technology? Can we have such features in most of the gadgets or product being made these days, released from Silicon Valley? I don't know if you've really tried the voice prompt on Google Maps.
Oh yes, absolutely. The voice, I love the voice. There's sometimes people get mad at me because when I'm driving, I always put the voice on, and they're like, "This is driving me crazy. Turn it off." And I'm like, "No, I love it." So not only with maps, but there's so many things like what I think really speaks to developers is when you're solving a problem with technology, that makes the technology cool. And this is such a great problem. If you can't see a map, if you can't see a picture, what can you use technologically in order to convey that information audibly? And you'd be amazed at the kind of tools and ideas people are coming up with. So there's certain graphs where you have the curves going up and down, and what some people have done is they've attached music to the graphs so that it just goes and makes like a high and a low sound, so it describes the maps audibly. So you really have to use some creativity to figure out how to take something like a map and present it audibly and perhaps make it interactive, where you could say, where you could type something in and get a result of, oh, north, like what is the terrain like north? Are there a lot of buildings? Is there a lot of greenery? Is there a lot of hills? How many streets are there? What's the density? Having an audible way of conveying that information would be amazing. So if there's a developer out there or a product person who's thinking about developing a product, think about how you can take any visual information, and whether that's a map or a graph or a chart or a picture, and convey it. Oh, there's so much orange in the picture. There's so much white. There looks to be a shirt. Microsoft came out with a Seeing AI that will describe a person. And I once was giving a presentation, and I said, does anybody want to volunteer to see what it's like with that Microsoft AI to describe that? Will you take a picture and it describes it? And a friend of mine just raised her hand. She came up, and the first thing it said was, it said her age, and that she was smiling, and it hit the nail on the head with her age, and she was embarrassed that the AI just announced her age to everybody. But it's such a cool feature to be able to take that picture, identify that it's a female, and that what is her age, and because it conveys that visual information audibly.
All right, thank you. So there's something I got from you during your discussion. So are you saying color or hue can actually affect people with disabilities from while they're browsing the website or something, the internet?
I'm not sure what you mean. Are you talking about the like color blindness, or are you talking about? Yeah.
Like does color really affect usability? Let's say for people with color blindness.
Absolutely, it affects it for me. I've gotten a surgery, so every time I go into the doctors who cut my eyes open, they tell me I'm 20/20 vision, but the result of the surgery is that contrast is very difficult for me. So if you have a gray on white, I can't see it. I have to blow up the text in order to see it, and the contrast is very important. And certain colors against certain colors are very disturbing. And I don't know if it disturbs everybody, like red on yellow for me is just a nightmare to look at, or certain combinations. So paying attention to that will improve the ability for the 2.2 billion people with a visual impairment to see the page.
Thank you. Please, local guides, share your question. Do you have more question? Please feel free to ask.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Yeah. So I'm Del from Indonesia. So I don't have any questions, but I guess we can just search on the Google some free courses on disability. I saw some others that they provided for free. However, if you like to have the certification, you have to pay. So I will share some free courses that I know so far. So perhaps everyone can take a look on that. If you would like to have more like certification, then you have to get additional fee on that. But if you just having like doing by yourself without any certification, then it should be free. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you. We are sharing here in chat links to Coursera courses. You can open it and learn more about them and can join to them. Please, more questions? Do you have questions?
Hello, my name is Shola. I'm Nigerian from Ghana. I've typed that in the chat box a minute ago too. Like accessibility, it's a real foreign word in Africa, right? So like, is there any, like, would I say assistance, or is there any way we can, education or the sensitivity can be sensitized out here? Because we use a lot of terms yet really most people are not here. And in fact, most of our companies and banks most of them haven't no accessibility features. So answer, what help, what influence can a local guide exert or have on that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Were you able to hear it well? Because it was a little bit, the audio was a little bit off for me. If you can summarize it, if not, I'll do my best.
Okay, let me help out. So, Joe, what he's trying to say is that here in Africa we have serious challenges with accessibility issues coming from the laws and implementation. So he's asking, what do you advise, or what do you think African countries can really do to help create more awareness about accessibility, so that we could make it more inclusive, like you have in the US and other developed countries, basically?
I mean, that's a great question, and I wish I could give you a great answer, but the reality is that it's not that accessible in the United States. 98% of websites are not accessible. So we even have a law here to back it up, and we still are not able to achieve it. So it's I mean, I don't know the situation in Africa, but it feels like it's an uphill battle. But there's no substitute from starting with the fundamentals. And so I would say the first step is any ability to influence the law would be really good. I don't know what lobbying looks like in Africa, but over here, the way to do that is a lobby. And if you get enough people that say that they want something, it tends to move the government. Money moves the government more than a lot of people, but both of them can have an impact. So you have to start with the law, because if you don't have the law backing it up, it's very difficult to get the people with money to invest in accessibility. Then you need to get together and say, do the advocacy and show how many people have disabilities, particularly regionally. And then use that as the business case to tell people that if you want to get a larger audience, then make your products accessible and you will get a larger audience. But this is very challenging, honestly, and it's challenging in the United States. It's challenging around the world. You know, for me, I'm just trying to attack a tiny little piece of it, which is to get the open source frameworks to be more accessible and to try and change the culture. But it's a massive task, and it's gonna be a fight after I die as well. So I'm just doing my best while I'm here.
Thank you, John.
All right, to help Shola hold on, Karen, just a minute. So to help Shola, I want Shola to also know that local guides and One Accessibility are doing a lot of work in Africa. So you could get your friends and people who are interested in One Accessibility to join local guides to help add places on the map. Also create awareness for maybe people who are interested in tech, developers in your community. So that's another way to help create awareness. You can start yourself, become an accessibility advocate wherever you are. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you. One more question?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, how are you?
Please. I am fine. Please, let's ask your question.
Yes. I am Mr. Mumtaz from Kuwait right now. My question is that I would like to ask for Mr. Joe and Mr. Amika that, and Sir Kashif is also there, which are the areas of accessibility on which Google is working nowadays? Which are the main areas that we should improve? And it is a responsibility of local guide. They have to work on it. Kindly, if you can comment on it.
I'm not an expert on necessarily on the Google features, so I'm not sure I can answer that question so well. I know that they have accessibility teams working on all of it, you know, from top to bottom. I've spoken with their teams, and I know that in different groups they're all working on it. You know, it's such a massive organization. I don't know how many 100,000 employees they've got, but you know, every time they have a new thing come out, they probably are going to have some accessibility issues that need to be worked on. I think they've gotten much better in the last few years, but I wish I could answer you better, but it's not the area that I'm specially focused on.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for answering.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jane.
Thank you so much.
It's Rahman from Lahore. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Hello.
And thank you to have you over here. I just want to know that whatever features you are developing, are these things available in different languages, or it is just limited to English language only? Because in Pakistan, majority of the people doesn't know English. They do not understand that. For them, it is very difficult, to get online and get the assistance. How can we help them, like without these online facilities?
So in terms of what I'm working on as a company, it really depends on the client. So some clients are specific to the United States. Our work is a lot with the media companies. So we work on reality show voting apps, reality show websites, or TV show websites. And typically the audience is English speaking because the content is in English. Although there are affordances for foreign dubbing and things like that. But we're probably not too involved in that aspect of it. However, in all the basic technologies, there's always a feature for local translations. So that's in terms of the technology that I'm working on. I think part of your question too is how to access local resources in other languages. And I'm not, I live in the United States, so I don't know what local resources would look like. However, I can tell you that Jennison and I are always love to welcome foreign language translations to the Global Accessibility Awareness Day website, the globalaccessibilityawarenessday.org website. And actually, on my list to work on is that by next year, which is the 10th anniversary, we want to have all the translations into all the UN languages. So I hope that will happen. I know a firm that might be able to do those translations, and that's the best I can do, but I don't know local resoused, unfortunately. I hate to tell you people things I don't know. But.
Thank you so much. Chinonja, please.
Kind of wrap up now. I know it has limited time and has to go. So please, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Join the One Accessibility volunteer group. Check us out on Local Guides Connect. Ask questions. We'll definitely try and continue the conversation in one way or another. But Joe, I would like to, on behalf of the One Accessibility team, on behalf of everybody, thank you very, very much for joining us, for spending the hour with us on your busy schedule. We truly appreciate it. And thank you very much for even, co-founding this initiative and, being part of this amazing movement. We just hope to, continue your legacy and do justice, but thank you very, very much for joining us. And thank you everybody else as well.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
I was very busy, but when I saw the ask, I just looked at your organization and I knew I needed to set aside the time because what you guys are doing looks amazing. So thank you for making this more global, and I'm wishing all of you the very best and happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, so much. We appreciate your beautiful lecture.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Everybody.
Bye.
Looking forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you very much,
everyone.
Amika.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, bye, bye.
For a great
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, bye-bye.
Sarkash, Dr. Joe Devon, and all
Thank
others participants.
Thank you very much,
Stay
everybody.
safe, everyone. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you, Niam.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jane. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ravindo? Ravindo?
Hi, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Ravindo. Thank you for joining us. Hi, guys.
Ravindra, I have a
I had
question. Ravindra, I have a question for you, Emeka.
Okay.
Yes, Ravindra, you can ask now.
okay.
Yeah.
So because I had some problem
Thank you for watching.
with the connectivity. I don't know whether you guys discussed. So whether did you like on the digital accessibility on maps?
Thank
So
you,
so we
everyone.
all use maps all the time, but digital accessibility, whether we are compliant as Google Maps. I just want to know whether the criteria, this the color blindness, those things, are maps compliant with those things?
Well, actually, what Joe was emphasizing on was for people with color blindness, right? So on the map, there's this feature, the voice feature. So if somebody has visual impairment, the voice feature will act as an alternative, right? So, but on websites, most websites don't have voice features. So that's why color plays a significant role. So if a website has a voice feature, then people with impairments might not really strain their eyes to look at the screen. So that's just the difference.
Yeah, but I think from when I see like, so this color blindness thing, is it I'm not an expert, but I think it's is it like if there are set of colors, I don't know whether you have the answer. So is there like set of identified colors that this particular group of people are like, let's say purple, this it's very common that purple is colorblind for some part of the population. If we like know such things, if those information is available, then the UI developers who are designing and making the maps or the other websites, so they can like make little twists in their design and use separate colors, so that everybody, the majority, at least the majority, will see the correct colors and the correct message.
Yes. So
Maybe. Yeah.
like Joe said, right? So this is one of the things he's doing in Silicon Valley with global accessibility awareness. So he himself, he has a color blindness challenge, like he said. So he has been operated on. So there are some colors which um, usually affects his sight. So it depends on individuals. So you could be colorblind for red, blue, or green. So, but there's a standard for websites. It should be online. You should check it out. Maybe black and white and bold. So instead of using red colors or yellow, you know, just use black and white, which is Chrome, which everybody could see whether you're colorblind or not. So, but if you're highlighting a text with a different color that is not black and white, some people might not be able to see them. So it depends. So there are variations. So the standard should be like black and white.
So we don't have any